In 1845, two ships ventured into the dark waters of the frozen and barren Canadian archipelago, seeking the legendary Northwest Passage. At the mouth of a vast channel, they were greeted by two whaling ships, which bid them farewell shortly after. These were the last people to ever see the crews of Erebus and Terror alive. For over a century, their fate remained a haunting mystery. Only in recent decades have researchers begun to uncover the chilling details of what befell these ships and their men, a tale far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. The mid-19th century was a time of great transformation and exploration. The Enlightenment had ushered in new ways of understanding the world, and the Industrial Revolution had reshaped societies. The vast oceans were being mapped, and the final frontier, the Northwest Passage, beckoned explorers to test their mettle. For Britain, a maritime superpower, discovering this elusive route would mean not just practical trade advantages, but also a monumental achievement in global exploration. The expedition's leader, Sir John Franklin, was a seasoned explorer with a controversial reputation. This was his third attempt to conquer the Arctic, following two earlier expeditions that had achieved mixed results. One of them ended disastrously, with half his crew perishing and the survivors resorting to eating moss and boiled leather to stave off starvation. Despite earning the nickname the man who ate his boots, Franklin was admired by his men for his resilience and fatherly leadership. Joining him were Captain Francis Crozier, a skilled Irish sailor and Arctic veteran, and Captain James Fitzjames, a younger officer with a bright future. The two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were marvels of 19th century engineering. Built to withstand the brutal conditions of the Arctic, they were outfitted with reinforced hulls, iron plating, and advanced heating systems. Both ships also boasted steam engines, allowing them to navigate even in the absence of wind, a revolutionary innovation. The expedition carried enough supplies for 3 years, including 16,000 tin cans of preserved food, theater costumes for entertainment, and a daguerreotype camera to document their journey. On May 19, 1845, the Erebus and Terror departed from Greenhithe, England, amidst great fanfare. The journey took them through Scotland and Greenland, where they replenished supplies and sent 5 sick crew members home. By July, they had reached Baffin Bay, where whaling ships reported seeing them enter Lancaster Sound, the gateway to the Northwest Passage. From there, the ships and their crews disappeared into the vast Arctic wilderness, never to be seen again. The Arctic was an alien world of extremes. Endless fields of ice stretched out in all directions, a mesmerizing yet treacherous expanse where temperatures could plummet to unimaginable lows. Compasses faltered near the magnetic North Pole, and the sun played tricks on time, either refusing to set in summer or vanishing completely in winter. It was a frozen desert, hostile to life, where survival required extraordinary resilience and ingenuity. Yet, as the men aboard the Erebus and Terror pressed on, they were filled with optimism, eager to leave their mark on history. Little did they know, they were sailing into an unforgiving abyss. The Arctic welcomed the expedition with deceptive calm, but the ice soon began to tighten its grip. By late 1845, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror found themselves locked in a frozen embrace near Beechy Island. The first winter came quickly, and the men settled into an uneasy routine. Snow was packed tightly against the ships to provide insulation, and canvas awnings were stretched over the decks to create makeshift shelters. Inside, the crew relied on their innovative heating systems, ration supplies, and the camaraderie of shared hardship. They passed the time with games, music, and plays, using the theater costumes they had brought to boost morale. For a while, it seemed as if they could withstand anything. But cracks in their optimism began to show. During that first winter, 3 men died and were buried on Beechy Island. The cause of death, later revealed through modern analysis, pointed to pneumonia and tuberculosis. Even more alarming, their bodies exhibited high levels of lead. The tin cans of food, a marvel of preservation technology at the time, were improperly sealed with lead solder. Additionally, the desalination system used to produce drinking water relied on lead piping, further poisoning the crew. Over time, this insidious element would weaken their bodies and cloud their minds, contributing to the tragedy that followed. By the spring of 1846, the ice began to release its hold, and the ships pushed onward. Franklin led his men southward, navigating the labyrinth of channels and islands that marked the edge of the known world. But his decision to sail west along the coast of King William Island would prove disastrous. Unbeknownst to Franklin, the waters to the west funneled ice flows from two major channels, creating a dense, impassable barrier. By September 1846, the Erebus and Terror were once again trapped in ice, this time near the island's western shores. The summer thaw never came, and the ice held the ships in its grip for over a year. As the long Arctic night descended, the men faced their second winter on the ice. Franklin's leadership, once a source of strength, began to falter. He grew ill, and by June 1847 he was dead. His loss was a devastating blow to the crew, leaving Captain Francis Crozier in command. Crozier was a seasoned Arctic explorer and a pragmatic leader, but he inherited an impossible situation. The men were malnourished, suffering from scurvy, lead poisoning, and the harsh realities of their frozen prison. Supplies were dwindling, and the once celebrated tin cans had become a source of sickness rather than sustenance. In desperation, the crew left messages in stone cairns, detailing their plight. One note, written in May 1847, reported that all was well. A second, hastily scrawled in April 1848, painted a grim picture. Franklin was dead, along with 9 officers and 15 crewmen. The ships had been abandoned, and 105 survivors, led by Crozier, were preparing to march south. Their destination was the Back River, over 150 miles away. It was a desperate plan, but the only one they had left. Dragging lifeboats laden with supplies, the men set out across the treacherous ice. Progress was slow and grueling. The terrain was unforgiving, with jagged ice ridges and patches of open water forcing them to navigate carefully. The weight of the lifeboats, each loaded with over 8,000 pounds of supplies, made the journey even more arduous. Many men succumbed to exhaustion and disease, their bodies left behind as grim markers of the expedition's slow unraveling. Even as hope faded, some clung to the belief that salvation was possible. They rationed their remaining food, hunted when they could, and pressed onward despite the mounting odds. But the Arctic's icy grip was unrelenting, and the men's strength waned with each passing day. The journey south would test them in ways they could never have imagined, revealing the depths of human endurance and the horrifying choices that would come to define their legacy. The final march south would become one of the most harrowing chapters of the Franklin expedition. Weak, malnourished, and suffering from the cumulative effects of scurvy and lead poisoning, the 105 men who abandoned HMS Erebus and HMS Terror in April 1848 faced an almost insurmountable challenge. Their goal was to reach the Back River, over 150 miles away, where they hoped to find open water and perhaps encounter a trading post or rescue party. But the Arctic had other plans. Splits in the group began to occur, as smaller parties broke off to try their luck along alternate routes. These decisions often spelled doom. Isolated groups were later found scattered across the Arctic, their remains marked by signs of desperation. Inuit accounts describe encounters with some of these men, noting their emaciated appearances and strange symptoms likely exacerbated by lead poisoning. Despite the overwhelming odds, a few survivors pushed farther south, clinging to the faint hope of rescue. The situation grew even more dire as supplies ran out and the men were forced to confront the unthinkable. Bones recovered from various campsites along their route revealed unmistakable evidence of cannibalism. Knife marks on the bones suggested that, in their final moments, the men resorted to cutting flesh from their fallen comrades in a desperate attempt to survive. These grim discoveries, corroborated by Inuit oral histories, paint a haunting picture of the expedition's last days. By the summer of 1848, many of the men had perished. Some succumbed to starvation and exposure, while others fell to disease. Yet, according to Inuit testimony, a few members of the crew were seen as late as 1850, wandering the desolate shores of King William Island and the surrounding region. One group reportedly tried to live off the land, hunting seals and caribou, but their lack of experience in the harsh Arctic environment sealed their fate. Another group, spotted near the Adelaide Peninsula, had a dog with them, believed to be Neptune, the expedition's loyal companion. The sighting of the dog lends credibility to these accounts, as it was a detail unknown to the Inuit prior to their encounters with the crew. The wrecks of the Erebus and Terror became ghostly monuments to the expedition's failure. According to Inuit accounts, one ship was seen still trapped in the ice, with smoke rising from its chimneys and bodies aboard. These sightings persisted for years, but the Victorian British public dismissed much of the Inuit testimony, clinging instead to the belief that their noble explorers would never resort to cannibalism or fall victim to such a grim fate. It would take over 150 years to piece together the full story of Franklin's lost expedition. In the late 20th century, forensic analysis of recovered remains confirmed the Inuit accounts. High levels of lead, cut marks on bones, and the desperate conditions described in written messages left by the crew all pointed to the horrifying reality of their final days. Modern archaeological efforts have continued to uncover artifacts and remains, shedding more light on this tragic tale. In 2014, the wreck of HMS Erebus was discovered in shallow waters near King William Island, remarkably well preserved after nearly 170 years. 2 years later, HMS Terror was found in Terror Bay, its condition even more pristine. These discoveries have opened new chapters in the study of the expedition, providing unprecedented insights into the crew's life aboard the ships and their struggle for survival. Artifacts recovered from the wrecks, including personal belongings and navigational tools, tell a poignant story of hope, resilience, and despair. Today, the Franklin expedition stands as a sobering reminder of the dangers of exploration and the limits of human endurance. It is a tale of ambition and hubris, ingenuity and tragedy, that continues to captivate and haunt those who seek to understand the mysteries of the past.